Imagine a Europe where on the streets of Paris, a soft echo of the azaan can be heard, where in Berlin's schools, children from different cultures sit together on the same bench, where halal restaurants in London have become a natural part of the city's nightlife. And then a question arises. Is Europe slowly changing? Is Islam becoming Europe's future? In today's video, we are not talking about propaganda, fear, or imagination. We are talking about facts, research, numbers, and ground reality. Today, we will understand why the Muslim population in Europe is growing so rapidly, what the real reasons behind it are, and what Europe's religious landscape could look like after 2050. This video is not just about one community. This video is about Europe's future, its politics, culture, schools, cities, and a transformation that is happening quietly, but whose impact will be very deep. By the end of this video, it will be clear that Europe is never going to become a Muslim continent, but it is also true that Islam has already become Europe's second largest religion, and its influence will be even more visible in the coming decades. So let's begin and understand where this story actually started. If we go a little back in history, Europe after World War II was in a completely different situation. Cities were destroyed, industries needed workers, and Europe had to rebuild its economy from scratch. During the 1950s and 1960s, Europe introduced guest worker programs. Germany invited workers from Turkey, France from North Africa, and the UK from South Asia and the Middle East. At that time, no one thought these people would settle permanently. The assumption was they will work, earn money, and then go back. But history chose a different path. These workers stayed. They brought their families. They had children, and slowly, Europe's demography began to change. This is where the foundation of Muslim presence in Europe was laid. Today, if we look at the current numbers, Muslims make up around 5% of Europe's population. For some people, this number may seem small, but the trend behind it is very powerful. Research shows that Muslims in Europe are younger than the average European. Their average age is about 13 years lower. This simply means more young people, more future parents, and naturally, higher birth rates. And this is where a factor begins that the media often oversimplifies. The truth is, the biggest reason for Muslim population growth is not migration alone, but birth rates. In many European countries, the fertility rate is around 1.4 or 1.5. Among Muslim families, the average fertility is about one child higher. This is not ideology. This is pure demography. Now, let's talk about migration, the topic that always dominates headlines. After 2014, Europe experienced a massive migration wave. The Syrian civil war, instability in Iraq and Afghanistan, and conflicts in the Middle East and Africa forced millions of people to move toward Europe. A large portion of these migrants were Muslim. This shook Europe's political environment. Immigration laws, border security, asylum policies, everything came under intense debate. But here, one very important point needs to be understood. Even if migration were completely stopped today, Europe's Muslim population would still continue to grow. According to research, even under a zero migration scenario, the Muslim population in Europe could reach around 7.4% by 2050. This clearly shows that this is not just a migration story. It is a story of population dynamics. Now the question arises, is this change happening equally across all of Europe? The answer is absolutely not. There are huge regional variations within Europe itself. Countries like France, Sweden, Germany, and the UK have a higher Muslim population, while many Eastern European countries still have very low numbers. In France, Muslim presence is more visible in cities. In Germany, the Turkish community has a strong cultural footprint. In the UK, South Asian Muslims have built strong positions in politics, business, and education. This is not just a numbers game. It is also a visibility game. In schools, the number of Muslim students is increasing. In cities, mosques and Islamic centers are becoming more noticeable. The halal economy is growing rapidly, and this is where a perception gap is created. Many people feel that the Muslim population is growing too fast, when in reality, Muslims are still a minority. They are just more visible than before. At the same time, another major change change is happening in Europe, one that is often ignored: the rise of secularism. A large part of Europe is moving away from religion altogether. Church attendance is declining, Christian identity is weakening, and the no-religion category is growing rapidly. As a result, Islam has become Europe's second largest religion, not only because Muslims are growing, but also because the Christian population is shrinking. So when we talk about the future, we must understand not just Muslim growth, but the overall religious shift happening across Europe. In this context, some studies claim that if current trends continue, certain countries could see Muslim majorities by the 22nd century. But here, a very important clarification is needed. These projections are based on long-term, hypothetical scenarios. They rely on assumptions that can change. Birth rates can decline, immigration policies can evolve, and identities can shift across generations. So saying today that Europe is going to become a Muslim continent is an oversimplification. Reality is far more complex and far more layered. If you walk today through major European cities like Paris, London, Berlin, Brussels, or Amsterdam, you won't see only churches and cathedrals. You will also see mosques, halal restaurants, Islamic schools, students wearing hijab, and busy markets during the month of Ramadan. This is not a future prediction. This is the present reality. Europe's urban landscape is silently transforming, where the Muslim community is not just living, but actively contributing. In many European countries, the biggest impact of Muslim population growth is visible in schools in the younger generation. According to research, the average age of Muslims is significantly lower than that of non-Muslim Europeans. This means that in Europe's classrooms today, the proportion of Muslim students will be even higher in the future workforce. In countries like France and the UK, there are many public schools where Muslim students already make up 30 to 40%. That is why debates around education policy, holidays, food choices, and cultural sensitivity are becoming more intense. Now, let's talk about politics. As the Muslim population grows, political participation is also increasing. In many European countries, MPs, mayors, and councillors with Muslim backgrounds have been elected. London's mayor, Sadiq Khan, is a major example of this. This sends a strong signal. The Muslim community is no longer just an immigrant group, but an integral part of the democratic system. At the same time, political polarization is also increasing around immigration, secularism, and religious freedom. With this growth come controversies and fears. Some people ask, is Europe losing its traditional identity? Can Islam and European secular values truly coexist? These questions fuel right-wing parties, which build strong narratives against immigration and Islam. But on the other hand, data also shows that the majority of Muslims in Europe accept democracy, law, and peaceful coexistence. The ground reality is far more complex than the headlines suggest. Now, another important angle: the future of religion itself. Europe has historically been a Christian continent, but today Christianity is declining while secularism is rising rapidly. Church attendance is at record lows. At the same time, Islam has become Europe's second largest religion. This matters because Muslim growth is not simply replacing Christianity. It is developing alongside a secular society. In other words, Europe is becoming neither fully religious nor fully Islamic. It is moving toward a multi-religious, multi-identity society. Some studies and reports also claim that if current trends continue, certain European countries could see Muslim majorities by the 22nd century. But these claims are often presented with exaggeration. The reality is, even by 2050, Muslims will remain a minority in Europe. Yes, in some specific cities and regions, their share may become quite high. But saying that Europe as a whole will become a Muslim continent is not an honest representation of the facts. The most interesting part is that the impact of the Muslim community is not limited to religion alone. From fashion and food to sports, music, and social media, Muslim presence is becoming increasingly visible everywhere. Hijab fashion has reached Europe's high street brands. Halal food has moved from a niche market to the mainstream. Muslim athletes are becoming role models in football and the Olympics. This kind of soft cultural influence is often more powerful because it changes society without force. So the real question is not whether the Muslim population is growing, because the data already makes that clear. The real question is, how will Europe manage this change? With conflict or with coexistence? With fear or with understanding? This decision does not belong only to governments. It belongs to society as a whole. And friends, before we leave, I want to leave you with a question. Think about this. The Europe that today defines itself through churches, cathedrals, and a secular lifestyle, will that same Europe in the coming decades experience an entirely new cultural and religious balance? Will the growing Muslim youth, through education, politics, and economic participation, make Europe more diverse and stronger? Or will this transformation create even more debates, policies, and identity questions in the future? What do you think? Will Europe's future become a new example of coexistence or a new chapter of conflict and confusion? Write your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit like. And for more deep research and powerful stories like this, share the video and subscribe to the channel.